I am super excited to have you back here today. I am excited about this particular topic that I've had in my back pocket for a while. So, today is the day. So, welcome back to Gallbladder Gone. Now What? The podcast where we dive into history, science, and even a little sacred wisdom to help you heal, thrive, and actually enjoy your body after gallbladder surgery. Today, we are talking about something that sounds familiar. We throw these words around, but almost nobody understands what it really means. We're going to be talking about enzymes. Yep, it's a word we've all heard before. You might even take a supplement or for some enzyme rich foods, but do you really know what they are, what they do, or why they are absolutely essential, and how you can get the most out of them, especially when you don't have a gallbladder? Now, again, this is not just for people without a gallbladder, but it's especially for those without a gallbladder. So, by the end of today's episode, you'll see enzymes in a whole new light. They're more than just a pill or a buzzword. They're the little spark plugs that power your digestion, your energy, and even your overall health. And if you think you've been digesting fat, quote, the old way, well, your body may be trying to tell you otherwise. So grab your tea, settle in, and let's uncover the story of enzymes from ancient traditions to modern science and discover how they can make a world of difference for your body, even if you don't have a gallbladder.
Gallbladder gone. Now what? Let's heal from the inside out.
Welcome to Gallbladder Gone. Now what? The podcast for Christian women navigating life after gallbladder removal. Hosted by Jami McQuivey, holistic nutritionist, wife, boy mum, grandma, and a firm believer in God's design for lasting health. Did you know that over 1.2 million Americans have their gallbladders removed every year, and that the majority of them are women? Even more eye-opening is that all gallbladder issues are digestive issues, and poor digestion is at the root of up to 80% of all disease, including hormone imbalances and weight struggles. While Jami isn't a doctor and this podcast isn't medical advice, she shares real solutions rooted in research, experience, and God's Word. Let's get practical, biblical, and real, one step at a time.
Welcome back, and today we are talking about what are enzymes. So let's start with the basics. Enzymes are the body's spark plugs. So imagine your food as logs of wood. You could stack them, but without a spark, there's no fire. Enzymes are that spark. They ignite chemical reactions that really break down our food into energy and nutrients. So when I'm teaching my students or my clients about digestion, I really go back to the basics. Why do we eat food? For energy, to feed our cells, right? So everything has to be broken down so small so it can pass through the barriers into the bloodstream or into the lymph, right? And so no matter what we eat, it has to be broken down all the way. So science tells us that there are two big categories of enzymes. So we're looking at digestive enzymes and metabolic enzymes. So digestive enzymes help break down your macronutrients. This is your carbs, your proteins, and your fats into absorbable nutrients. Now, metabolic enzymes, they run all the background processes, the immune system healing, your ability to think clearly, things like this. And here's where history comes in. Ancient traditions from Ayurveda in India to Hippocrates in Greece always emphasized eating foods in their natural living state. Fresh fruits, sprouted grains, fermented foods. Even, we can dehydrate things at less than 115 degrees. Now we use blenders to make soups that you don't have to cook. All of these things. Why? Well, because these contain their natural enzymes that help pre-digest our meals. So these raw living foods have enzymes that help break themselves down, which I think is so amazing. So long before there were microscopes, they knew food had something powerful that helped the body do its job. So where are these enzymes found? So enzymes are literally everywhere in your body because they are the catalysts that make life happen. You can think of them again as those spark plugs or tiny helpers that keep your body running. So here's the breakdown a little bit. We're just going to go through this smoothly. Um, First of all, in the digestive tract, so where this digestion begins. So in our mouth, we have um, amylase, salivary amylase, which starts the breakdown of starches immediately when you chew. And this is why chewing is so important. And this won't be the last time you hear me say this on this podcast or in future podcasts. We need to be chewing our food. Then it goes down into the stomach where there is pepsin, which begins that protein digestion. Then the food moves through. Now we're heading towards the small intestines and where the pancreas is. And the pancreas secretes digestive enzymes, right? This is also where bile is released. It used to be from the gallbladder, but now it's just kind of being dripped from the liver if you don't have a gallbladder anymore. And that that bile is going to break things down, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But lipase breaks down the fats. Protease breaks down protein. The amylases break down carbs. So these enzymes help your body turn food into absorbable nutrients. You notice that there's ACE, right? Lipase, protease, amylase. That's the enzyme. They're not all like that, but that's a good rule of thumb. So the takeaway here is that this area most people think of when they hear enzymes, but it's only part of this bigger picture. So within our cells, we also have metabolic enzymes. And so these are in charge of chemical reactions like breaking down sugar for energy, repairing DNA, detoxifying chemicals, fighting inflammation, and without these enzymes, our body would literally stop functioning. So we don't want that to happen. The third place we're going to look is systemic enzymes. So this is in the blood and in the tissues. So some enzymes circulate in the bloodstream or act in tissues to reduce inflammation, repair damaged tissue, support immunity. Before you check out right now, because I'm just giving you a lot of information. So before you check out, don't feel like you have to be writing things down or memorizing all this. I'm just giving you an idea of how powerful they can be. So we want we want to understand. So I want you to understand how important they are. So then when you're deciding where you're going after this information, that you have a full picture. So the fourth thing is that these enzymes are in raw and living foods. These are our external helpers. So the other ones were internal. So enzymes are going to be in foods like fresh fruits and vegetables and sprouts and fermented foods. The fermented foods include miso, kimchi, yogurt, kefir, and these are all containing these living enzymes. So when we're eating raw or even lightly cooked food, these assist our body's own enzymes by already starting to break down the food before it even reaches our stomach. And so this makes it so much easier. And so they're often called living foods because they carry helpers and body that the body naturally uses. So if we have low enzymes, which most of us do, because most of us eat a lot of cooked foods, and don't have the supporters like the fermented foods daily or the fermented drinks, and to really support our body and aren't taking supplementation. So when we have low enzymes, it's like having a kitchen that is full of dull knives, a weak blender, a broken can opener, all of these things that our body just struggles to chop, blend, and open our food properly. So that meal will sit half digested. Now, when this happens, It causes gas and bloating, and now our body can't absorb the nutrients. We have nutrient shortages. And after gallbladder removal, it's like cooking with only half the heat that you have. So the fats in particular don't get broken down efficiently. So this sounds like a disaster. The great thing is these can be supplemented, but plus we can also do some diet and lifestyle things to support these systems. So now if you've had your gallbladder removed, digestion, as we've discussed, gets a little bit tricky, especially with fats. The gallbladder's job was to hold bile and concentrate it and release it when the fat showed up. So without it, that bile just drips from the liver and it's weaker and more diluted. So imagine again, like the gallbladder is a faucet with a sprayer that only turns on when you push the handle. So it gets this, this really big rush and it sprays strong and it's targeted and it breaks down these fats. Now, when we don't have that gallbladder, it's like the faucet is stuck open on a tiny trickle. And so your liver keeps sending bile, but it's weak and it's always on. And this is why we do need to be taking bile supplementation. And I have the supplements. If you go into my show notes, I have a whole thing set up for the supplementation bundle. So you can look in there and you never ever have to buy all the things. It's just the supplements that I recommend and that I enjoy taking myself. So you'll see that over there. So fats don't get this concentration that they need. So this means that when you eat a meal with more than just a tiny amount of fat, your body might not have enough bile power to emulsify so that it's breaking it down and turning it into usable resources. So when fat isn't digested properly, we usually feel it. Like we get that bloating, greasy stools, fatigue, exhaustion. And then we start to get those, again, nutrient deficiencies where vitamins A, D, E, and K. And I like to point out it's big with all of these, but we really knows kind of with the D, they do a lot of supplementation with D, but we can keep taking it as much as we want, but if we're not going to break it down and absorb it, it's not going to be beneficial for us, right? So it really starts with making sure that we can break down all of these nutrients. All right, so here we go. This is where enzymes, especially pancreatic lipase, which is in our pancreas, the enzymes that chemically digest fat. So bile breaks fat down, but it is the pancreatic lipase that digests the fat. So we need that helping hand. So after gallbladder removal, we face two challenges. First is that emulsifying of fat. So normally your gallbladder releases that concentrated surge of bile and breaks down those large fat globules into tiny, tiny droplets. So without it, the bile trickles, continuously is weaker, so fats are not prepped efficiently. So bile is not an enzyme. But in the blend that I suggest in that link, it's in full script, so I give 10% off, but in that bile, it has enzymes. It's paired with enzymes, and that's why I did that, because it's so much more helpful than just taking bile. All right, so when we take that bile, not being an enzyme, but with the enzymes, all of that breaks down fat and prepares it for digestion. And then the digesting of the fat is the pancreatic lipase job. So it breaks down those fats into fatty acids. So again, this is just information. Don't let it overwhelm you. And where our body can absorb it. So fatty acids and glycerol. And so then our body goes, oh, I know what this is, and I can use this, and I can also carry it, right? If it's too big, our body can't carry it. So it needs to be super tiny. So supplemental digestive enzymes with lipase give your pancreas that boost of help it needs. It helps fats get fully digested, nutrients absorbed efficiently. And so, in short, after gallbladder removal, we need both bile to emulsify and pancreatic enzymes to digest. And enzymes support can help do both of these things effectively. All right, so let's go back a little bit. Enzyme therapy is not new. As early as the 19th century, scientists isolated enzymes from plants like papaya, and so that was papain is the enzyme, and pineapple, which is bromelain, and realize these substances, first of all, they're delicious, right? But they dissolve proteins outside the body. So by the 20th century, Dr. Howard Loomis, which I have his book, I love him, and I'm actually trying to get him on this podcast, began teaching that enzymes aren't just passive helpers, that they're vital at every stage of digestive health. So meanwhile, like way back in the day, ancient cultures had already been using enzyme-rich foods. So again, back to that sauerkraut, miso, kimchi, yogurt, kefir, these are not new. And these foods were treasured and they were used daily, several times a day, in fact, to help support digestion and vitality. They didn't know the word enzyme, they didn't have a microscope, but they knew the positive effect these had on the body. So how science can help here. So with that, scientifically, what do enzymes do for someone without a gallbladder and with a gallbladder? So again, if you're listening to this, and I know some people are that have their gallbladder, because all of this information is fantastic for everybody, and it's essential, super essential for those without a gallbladder. So these enzymes will break down these fats more fully. So that's lipase turns these fats into fatty acids that our bodies can absorb. This reduces the stress on the pancreas. So if enzymes come from the outside, your body doesn't have to work so hard to produce them. So we can already start that breakdown in our food and then in our mouth. And then, the downstream is a lot easier. So one fascinating point from research is that plant enzymes, unlike pancreatic enzymes, can work across a broad range of pH levels in the stomach and intestines. So that makes them especially helpful when digestion is compromised. Super important. Whenever I study health, I love looking at what the scriptures have to say. So while the Bible, of course, doesn't mention enzymes and all of this, scientific-y talk, it talks often about living foods, living food, living bread, living water. And so we're starting to understand that that's not just pretty words, but that in Genesis, God gives Adam and Eve every seed-bearing plant for food. So living, sprouting, enzyme-rich foods, right? He's surrounded and the herbs. So him Christ himself is called the bread of life. So bread in biblical times was alive. It was fermented with wild yeast and bacteria, and it had tons of enzymes. So compared to our sterile white bread world today, this is a sacred reminder, and it's very clear that living foods sustain living bodies. Dead foods contribute to dead bodies, right? So we want more living, more life-giving foods. So when we think of enzymes as the life spark, if you will, in food, it mirrors the idea that God designed creation with exactly what our body needs. And I feel this way, that I get so excited because even when I've moved from Iowa to the desert of Utah, it's amazing what foods show up specifically here and in latitude, altitude, and longitude, and it's specifically designed, and it's not, the creation was for living bodies and not dead, lifeless fuel, but food that carries life-giving processes within. And God is miraculous that way. So, okay, now that we know this, we know what enzymes are, we know why we need them, we know a little bit of what they do in our bodies. How do we practically support our bodies? So, I dive deep into this into practical things in my program, but when we're living without a gallbladder, these are some very important steps. So first thing is use digestive enzyme supplements with lipase at your main meals. Now, if you don't have a gallbladder, you probably should only be having 2 or 3 meals and not snacking in between. So think of it as replacing the missing step of your gallbladder that your gallbladder used to do. So in the show notes, there's a link that says supplementation suggestions. Digestion GB by Pure Encapsulation is one of my absolute favorites. Not only does it have bile, but it's paired with protease, lipase, amylase, and some other cofactors. And so it's the one that I found. I've tried to branch out and find others, and it just isn't the same. Now, if you feel you need extra support, like things are not going well for you, I did put in there an ultra blend that has a lot of different enzymes, a more like broad spectrum, a lot more different kinds. And I wouldn't do one instead of the other. I would do Digestion GB, and then if you want to add ultra blend, then that's what I would do. All right, the next thing is we need to be making sure we are slowing down and chewing thoroughly. So digestion begins in the mouth. So if we can have foods that already have those enzymatic properties, which they include the raw and fermented foods that naturally bring enzymes that lighten that digestive load. And now we're chewing and chewing and we're mixing with that amylase. It's already starting to break down. And the more pre-digestive work that is done in the mouth and in the stomach, the less work the pancreas is required to do. And the gallbladder or the liver can help with the digestion of the fats that our gallbladder's not doing. So the rule of thumb there is always chew your drinks and drink your food. Again, chew your drinks. That means whatever you drink, put it in your mouth and kind of swish it around before you swallow it. And drink your food means chew, chew, chew until it's like a drink. So you're drinking it down like a smoothie. So if you have a smoothie, we just tend to suck down the smoothie instead. Suck in a mouthful, swish it around, and then swallow it. So your amylase gets all in there and starts breaking things down. All right, the next thing you're going to want to do is keeping those meals maybe smaller. Sometimes I know I do. I've in the past have a tendency to overeat. And so our body handles smaller amounts of fat much better when we don't have a gallbladder. So choose healthy fats that wisely instead of fried foods or heavy oils. And we lean towards things like avocados and olive oil and coconut in small amounts and omega-3 rich foods like flax or chia seeds. And I go into this in episode 32. So if you want to go back and listen to that about fats, I think you'll be really interested in that. Again, we also want to include those raw and fermented foods, and I will be doing a podcast here on that. So if you have not subscribed, please subscribe so all this can come to you. And then there is a link in the show notes where you can also get the PDFs and the I sometimes will post recipes or things in there. And then it also puts you on my email list. So, and I only send one a week, and it's just a quick little blurb, and then it says what episodes came out and which ones are coming out. So you kind of get a preview. And so make sure to sign up for that. So remember that enzymes do not replace healthy eating. They empower it. And again, back to that scripture in Genesis 1:29, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, you shall have them for food. So you know that information without action is just like a recipe you never cook. All the potential is there, but there are no results. I don't want that for you. So, inside my program, I have given you practical and essential information to help you understand what's going on and the essential steps to help you reach your goals. So, before we wrap up, I want you to click on the links in the bio and get immediate access to the full program. You can put it on the app, download the app, and then start listening and working by yourself. Or if you feel you need some support, work with me. I would love to help you. So let's get you feeling great again. Now to wrap up. Enzymes are not just another supplement on the shelf. They're the body's spark plug. So remember, they're essential to turning food into energy and healing. So after gallbladder removal, they're even more important because they help compensate for the missing bile surge and keep your digestion smoother, your nutrients flowing, and your body so much stronger. From history, we learn that people treasured enzyme-rich foods long before they were explained by science. And so now, from science, we know that enzymes are the catalyst for essential for life. And from the sacred text, we are reminded that God gave us living foods for a reason. So if you're asking, no gallbladder, now what? One answer is give your body the enzymes it needs to keep that inner fire burning. Remember that Agni that we talk about. So thank you for joining me today. I know that was a lot of information. If you stuck it out this far, you're awesome. In this episode, I hope this episode blessed you. So please share it with friends. And remember, your body was designed for healing. And so we give it the right support, and then you can thrive. So until next time, happy digesting.
If this episode encouraged you or offered practical insight, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Leaving a review, subscribing, and sharing with even one friend helps more people discover this message, and Jami is truly grateful for your support. Be sure to check the show notes for free downloads, helpful resources, and a link to join Jami's private Facebook group for extra support and community that blends practical health with biblical truth. Just a reminder, Jami isn't a doctor, so always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your health plan.